Welcome back to the Swearwolves. I'm Bret. Today's episode is episode 249, Craven Something New. Now, this episode is about Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Wes Craven's New Nightmare came out obviously after, well, not, I guess it's not obvious, but it came out after Freddy's Dead. I did not see this movie when it came out in theaters. This movie was released the same day as Pulp Fiction. Everybody knows that I love Pulp Fiction. I have the kangaroo and the Butch's gold watch. Pulp Fiction was a movie that changed my entire point of view on filmmaking, on writing, on directing, on acting, on everything. And I was very into that when I was a senior in high school, which is when these movies came out. New Nightmare, I was just like, man, I'm done. I'm done with Freddy. I'm done with that for right now. I didn't see it when it first came out. I watched it really late. Later on. It was probably only for the first time a couple of years ago. I watched it on my own. We didn't review it for the podcast, but I was like, I need to watch this movie. I watched it. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't really like it when I first watched it. We watched it again for the podcast just now. I liked it a lot more than previously. So I talk about that in this episode. So don't hate me if you're like, oh, well, Wes Craven, he was a genius and he did New Nightmare and it was awesome. It's good. It's good. And a lot of people say it's the precursor to Scream. I don't get it. Maybe in like the fact that it was a movie directed by Wes Craven and people were like, oh, he's still got chops. Let's put him on Scream. But Kevin Williamson wrote Scream, and he didn't write Scream based on Wes Craven's New Nightmare. He just wrote Scream, and it's not really that meta. It's not like these people are actors acting. I don't know. It's like they're unrelated. I don't know. Maybe someone can explain it to me. Maybe you have thoughts on it. Please leave them. I'm sure people are like, you're a fucking idiot. Anyway, episode 249, second to last episode of the Swearwolves, at least this run of the Swearwolves. Episode 249, Craven Something New. Enjoy it. Welcome back to the Swearwolves. I'm Bret.
I'm David.
David.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
What's going on, jet setter?
Not a whole lot.
Look at me. I travel all over the place. Every weekend I'm going someplace. Oh,
so busy and important.
David, you just got back from Texas Frightmare weekend. Texas Frightmare weekend? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think that's what's the official name.
Texas Frightmare.
Yeah.
How was
short.
that? You went by yourself.
I did.
Poor babies.
I know. All alone.
Did you feel weird?
Yeah, they let me go up in the cockpit, though, and they gave me one of those little airplane pins. I was flying by myself. It's pretty cool.
You sat on the lap of the pilot. He's like, David, do you like gladiator films?
So, yeah, we reenacted scenes from Airplane. It was actually Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, which is crazy.
He was there?
He was there.
Did you ever see the movie, the last Bruce Lee movie, Game of Death?
Long time ago.
So it's pretty shitty because they finished it. He died while they were filming it, so they had to like edit things. But he did do the fight scene with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Oh, that's right.
All the fight scenes I think were already done.
Right.
It's awesome because it's like, dude, Game of Death is like Mortal fucking Kombat. It's like he goes to this pagoda.
Yeah.
Like fucking place, and he has like 3 or 4 different levels of people he's got to fight, and each person has their own unique ability, and so he's got to adapt his fighting style to like
it's pretty cool.
Beat their ass. And so the top one is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he's like 11 feet tall, and Bruce Lee was like 5'5".
Yeah, he was a little fella.
And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar like kicks him, and then he's got this big footprint on his chest. It's pretty fucking awesome. If you haven't ever seen Game of Death, don't see it. Because it's really bad because the stuff that they filmed after he died is like they had like an actor replacing him, but they like pasted they like literally cut and pasted a face over the top. So it's like not following his face. It's just staying still.
That's rough.
It sucked. Anyway, go ahead. So you went to Texas Frightmare. Yeah,
so I flew in on Friday and then I was staying at a hotel that was a couple miles from the venue, so I took an Uber down there, and I was, tried to get there like, I think like an hour and a half or so before the doors opened, just in case there was a line.
Did you figure it was going to be busy?
Yeah, and man, I should have got there even earlier because the line, like I shit you not, this was at the Irving Convention Center, so a different venue than last year, a bigger venue, better venue. The line was snaked all the way around the convention center into the parking garage and then weaved in and out of the parking garage. It was nuts.
That's fucking dumb.
Like I was at a point where I was just barely in the parking garage, which was kind of nice because it was shaded. Mm-hmm. So that part was cool.
So who were the big guests? John Carpenter?
John Carpenter was the big one, and I saw a ton of John Carpenter's stuff. Like people, were wanting to get signed, and I think they did like a lottery type thing to get. Well, I think if you had VIP on Friday, I think you could get him. They had like a special time where it was like VIPs only that could go get his autograph. Okay. And then like on Saturday, I think you actually had to like show up at the box office when it opened, and probably line up hours early to get a ticket to meet him.
Do you remember when we met him and we were VIPs and we just cut in front of everybody?
We just walked right up there. It was fucking awesome.
It was fucking awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I was like, I'm not going to meet John Carpenter. He was not on my list at all. And I'm sure I'm sure his line was ridiculous. He was on a completely different floor.
Well, he is on a different level than everybody else. He is. But when we went and saw him, we cut in front of everybody, and there was this guy in the line next to us, and he was probably like 4 deep. So he had to wait for us though, and he goes, "Oh, look at these guys, the VIPs," and we're like Wayne and Garth,
showing our backstage passes. Hey, everybody, we're just going right up to the front. Yeah, he was a big guest. I have underestimated the popularity of the Terrifier movies. Dude, I saw so many Art the Clown T-shirts and people dressed like him, and his line was pretty long. I'm going to tell
you, hot take from Bret. You ready for this one, David? I think you probably agree with me.
I do know.
Terrifier 2, not that good.
I didn't like it either. And I don't really like the first one, if I'm being honest.
The first one was better than the second one.
Yeah, they're both just okay.
But the second one was just gross, just for gross sakes.
Yeah.
And I'm all for gruesomeness in movies. I like good, like solid kills and grotesque kills and stuff. But that was what they want. That's what they did mostly with Terrifier 2. And B, it was like none of it didn't really make sense.
Yeah, I want some sort of coherent story, and neither of those movies really deliver on that.
There is no story. We don't know anything about Art the Clown. It's like we don't care. See, here's the thing. All right, we're going to get sidetracked here, David.
That never happens.
Let's talk about the 3 big slasher movies, right? Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, all right? Halloween. Yes, there's some shitty Halloween entries. Don't get me wrong. But we know, even for not knowing a lot about Michael in the first one, like all we knew was that he was a kid. What the fuck happened to him? Why is he fucking possessed? We don't we don't know all this, but we at least know where he's coming from. So we kind of quote unquote care. We don't care about him. He's a fucking killer, right?
Right.
But we know.
Jason Voorhees has a backstory. Same with
Jason Voorhees. Freddy has a backstory. We might not know all of it, but by the end of the movie, we're like, okay, we pretty much got it. He was a fucking child killer. All the parents hunted him down, killed him. Now he haunts them in their dreams. We know this. What do we know about Art the Clown? He's a creepy looking fucking clown. Well, a lot of clowns are creepy looking. And he likes to kill people in fucking gruesome and grotesque ways.
Yeah, and he's got some sort of supernatural element to him. But
yeah, and then we're gonna introduce a little girl clown, and then there's gonna be this fucking howdy doody show that fucking I don't know, but people love.
They do,
to get back to your original
and especially
point.
Younger people. I mean, the new generation of horror fans. Like I saw a lot of younger people wearing Art the Clown stuff, but his line, what's his name? David Howard Thornton. His line was long. Every time I walked by it. Same with the director, and then another one that surprised me but didn't surprise me as far as his popularity was John Kassir, the Crypt Keeper. Like his line was super long the entire time I was there.
That's good to hear because I remember when we met him, like his line wasn't that long. He was kind of back in a corner at Mad Monster, I think.
Yeah, he was all the way in the corner. And his line was like, I mean, it was never empty, but not busy. But yeah, his line was busy. And then the one that surprised me the most, and I shouldn't be surprised because I've seen this guy at other shows and he always has a long line and I just don't get it, is that David Sheridan guy, Doofy, from Scary Movie. Like, why the fuck is that guy's line crazy long?
I don't get it. I don't get it at all. He was in one of the Scary movies, and what else has he done?
I mean, I'm sure he's done plenty, but it's like...
And then he always dresses up as that Doofy character. Yeah. And it's like... I understand that people think that character is funny. I don't particularly think that. In fact, I think Scary Movie 1 is inferior to Scary Movie 2. But I don't like that character. I think you're making fun of mentally challenged people. I mean, it's like that's low hanging fruit.
Exactly.
And it's not even ripe fruit anymore. Like,
it's tired. I don't understand it. But yeah, his line was ridiculous. But anyway, I wasn't there to meet any of those people. So I only had, this was one of those shows where like the guest list was a lot of people that you and I have already met. So even though there was a lot of good people on there was really only a few that I was there to get. So the first one that I got once I went in was Richard Masser. Once they let everybody in, all the quote unquote like major guests, their lines were getting really queued. So Masser, I think there was maybe only 5 or 6 people in front of me. But he was super nice. He signed my poster. He signed my Petri dish that I had and the little poster. And he was like, "Oh man, you got a lot of signatures." He's like, "Oh, you got Wilford Brimley on here." And he's like, "Who do you need?" He's like, "You need TK Carter." And I was like, "And I need Kurt Russell." And he's like, "Ha, yeah, you're not going to get that one."
So I told you about my friend who lives in Aspen, right?
Yeah.
And he was messaging me. We have a friend from high school, and we were messaging each other on Instagram one day, and I was like, "Yeah, I need." He messaged me. He's like, "Hey, do you want to go? I can't make it to this comedy show in New York. I have tickets. They'll be waiting for you in New York City. Can you go? Because I know you're close." And by close, like within driving distance. And I was like, "No, I can't make it." And he was like, "Oh, I was supposed to meet up. My friend is friends with, I want to say Wyatt Russell, but it's somebody. It's one of Kurt Russell's like fucking kids or some shit." And we were supposed to meet up with him, but my friend had broken his leg or some shit. I don't remember exactly what happened. He just
dumbass.
And I couldn't go. Not that I would have met up with him, right? Not that I was going to be like, "Hey,
let's hang out.
You don't know me."
I brought beer.
But I was like, "Oh, that's crazy that your friend is friends with Kurt Russell's kid." I go, "Because I need his signature on my thing poster." And he goes, "Well, ... And then like about 5 minutes later, I got another message from him. And he's like, "I see him all the time because he comes up here, to go skiing or whatever. He goes up to Aspen like in the wintertime or..." I don't know exactly when. I'm assuming in the wintertime, but that's where they spend a lot of time at. And he's like, "I see him all the time." He's like, "I've talked to him before." I was like, "Fuck.
I'm going to mail you my poster and get him to sign it."
Well, no, because I don't know if I trust that guy as far as I could throw him, but...
Yeah, well, and like the relationship probably isn't like that. Then it would just be weird.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm ever in Aspen, if I'm ever going to be in Aspen, I'll just message that dude and be like, "Hey, is Kurt Russell around?" Because we did meet a guy in Ohio when we were at Cincinnati.
They got Kurt Russell's autograph, but like basically knew where he was going to be and just happened to be there at the same time. And that's basically what Richard Masser said. He's like, your only chances really of getting Kurt are just to bump into him or find out where he's going to be and get his autograph.
Although Kurt Russell was doing a wine tasting or some shit event.
He even mentioned that.
Yeah.
But he's like, conventions and stuff, he's like, you're not going to get Kurt Russell.
No, he's not going to be at a convention. No. Not anytime soon, at least.
Yeah. But anyway, Richard Masser, really, really nice guy. And then after that, I walked over, I got Joe Polis, who we've met before, but neither of us have him on our original one sheets. So I added him.
We do now.
He was really cool. And then just like the first time we met him, he has at his table, he must take it to all the shows, like a photo book of like all these photos that he took while he was on location shooting the thing. Yeah. So he's got all this behind the scenes stuff, like stuff from the set and like candids of just them hanging out. Just really cool. And you can just flip through the book. And then I was talking to him about that, and he said that people keep telling him, he's like, people keep telling me I need to write a book. And I was like, yeah, dude, you totally should. Like, do a picture book or something, or put all these photos together and kind of tell your story.
What we should do, David, now that we're not going to be doing this podcast anymore, we should put together a documentary about the thing, because they haven't, like they did with Never Sleep Again or Crystal Memories or something.
Do a long ass
I think
one.
You could do a documentary about the thing and interview a bunch of these guys. While they're still kicking. I mean, because some of these guys are older.
Yeah, they're all getting up there.
Thankfully, they're not dead, but nobody gets any younger.
Nobody lives forever, exactly. And then after him, I went over and I talked to Ed Gwynn, who was in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He's the cattle truck driver at the end of the first movie, and then he's also got a bit part in part 2 as the chili cook-off judge. So I brought my original part 2 poster, had him sign that. He was really nice. He was like, "Hey, where are you from?" And I was like, "Oh, I came in from Phoenix." And he's like, "Oh, that's really cool." And then like he's got a really heavy Texas accent. And I was like, "You're from Texas, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." But he was a really nice guy to talk to.
That dude is the guy. That dude's character is the guy I messaged you about it. He throws a wrench.
Yeah, hits him right in the head.
Leatherface square between the eyes, knocks his ass down, and that's when
got something on your face.
Yep. That's when he cuts his leg with the chainsaw. And Gunnar Hansen actually did burn his leg doing that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Anyway.
And then after that, I was basically done. Those were the only 3 people that I was there for. So I just walked around, and they had a lot of good vendors, just a bunch of random stuff. And then I found a couple different people that had really nice vintage movie poster collections. One in particular had so many, it was overwhelming. I would go through it and I'd be like, "Oh my God, that one's amazing. Oh my God, that one's amazing."
English, American, because I've seen a lot of them.
Yeah, American folded one sheets. Yeah, and all of them were in really good condition. And he had some super rare ones. And all of them were priced very well. I could have dropped a ton of money there, but I was like, "Oh my God!"
What were some of the rare ones?
I mean, you and I both have original Friday the 13th Part 1 posters. Yeah. He had a couple of those, and they were priced at $125 or $150.
That's a good price.
Yeah, he had original Creep Show posters for $200. I think those are usually about $400. He had an original Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974. That one was $650 or so.
Which is a lot of money, but that's a pretty good price for that particular poster.
There's, and then original Nightmare on Elm Street, all sorts of cool stuff. So I was looking at a couple of different things. I'm probably gonna get something. So I was real close to getting Creep Show because Tom Savini was there. I was like, I could just walk over and get Tom Savini to sign this. But then I was like, oh, I found an original Christine one sheet. And it was perfect condition. And it was $100. So I was like, that is more than fair for this particular poster, especially for the shape that it's in. And there were a few people from Christine that were there. So I was like, well, shit. So I bought it.
All the bullies, right? All the bullies.
Yeah, all the bullies. Christine. Well, 3 of them. So then I took the poster and just walked right over to where they were. They were doing a photo op or something. So none of them were there. So I just lingered like a creeper, just waiting for them to come back. And the first guy that came back was William Ostrander, I'm not sure how to say his name, but he's the guy that played the main bully, Buddy. Yeah. The real prick.
Buddy. The long-haired guy.
Yeah. He's got very short hair now.
He looks like he's 32 years old in that movie.
Yeah. Now he's got short hair, and he's got kind of a James Hetfield kind of look. He was a big dude, buff. He looked, he looked tough. But he was really nice. Didn't talk to him a whole lot, but something that's kind of funny was when he was going to sign it, I was like, could you sign it in red? I think red would really pop on this poster. And he's like, oh, I actually don't have red. And then so I was fumbling with my backpack because I had paint pens. And I was like, I think I got a red. And he's like, oh, you know what? And he looks over at the table next to him. And he's like, here's a red marker. I'll just use his because he's not here. And that guy, that was Malcolm Danair, the guy that plays Moochie in the movie. He wasn't back yet from the photo op. So he quickly grabs his marker and signs it. And then right after that, that guy comes back. So then he quickly put the marker back on his table. And I talked to that guy for a few minutes. The guy who played Moochie. He was really funny. Just a ton of personality. And he gave the other guy shit for stealing his marker. And then as I was wrapping up with him, Stephen Tash walks up, and he's the other bully in the movie. And he's also mainly known as the guy in Ghostbusters, the original Ghostbusters movie, the guy that's getting electric shocks at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
He walked up. So then I went over to his table, and I was chatting with him, and I was like, could you sign it in red? And he's like, oh, I actually don't have a red marker. And I was like, hold on a second. So I ran back over to Malcolm Danair's table, and I was like, hey, can I borrow this? I'll bring it right back, I promise. And he's like, yeah, whatever. So then Stephen Tash signed it, and I told him about my Ghostbusters pinball machine. I was like, oh, man, I should have brought my translite from that machine. I would have had you sign it. And he's like, oh, that's a really cool game. And he was like, did you know that in Las Vegas, there's a Ghostbusters slot machine that apparently is in every casino right now, and it's super popular. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. And he's like, yeah, I didn't know that either. And apparently he's like, guests tell me all the time at these shows that a very prominent clip in the slot machine is me getting electrocuted. And it's kind of funny. He was like, which got me to thinking, I didn't even know this existed. And I'm thinking, as an actor, am I entitled to anything? That's my likeness. I don't know if I have any rights. And this is kind of sad. He's like, but also at the same time, I'm afraid to ask anyone because you don't want to sound like a greedy prick. and like get like blackballed. He's like, so it's just one of those things in the back of my mind.
Can't he just ask his agent?
Yeah. So I don't know if he did, but I thought that was kind of funny.
He needs to ask his agent, because I would assume, unless of course they paid him for his likeness.
Yeah, like when he signed his original contract in '84 or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. But he was really nice. He looked exactly the same. Just instead of his hair like being like kind of like a bird's nest, it was just down and long. But he had like the same face. Like the dude looked exactly the same.
I know we're not in a visual medium, but David's Christine poster, if you go to our website, I'm sure he'll put some pictures up of it, but it is sweet looking.
Yeah,
like that. The only thing that would have made it better is if you could have snuck into John Carpenter's line and got him to sign it.
Well, it's funny you say that, Brett, because later after the show, like it closed at 11, and I was like, you know what? And it was like 10:45. I was like, I'm gonna sneak up there. Well, not sneak. I'm gonna take the escalator upstairs just to see if John Carpenter happens to be there, and if he is his line long, and can I get in? Yeah. So I get up there. I go up to like I can see like where his room is marked. There's nobody standing outside of it. I was like, holy shit. And I walked right in, and the room was empty. John had left for the evening. So I did not get him.
Well, you bring that up because when we met him in Steel City Con, we walked by just to see what his line was like, because it was a long line earlier in the day. And when we walked by, nobody was there because he was just coming back from lunch or dinner or something.
Something like that.
His line was completely empty, and he was sitting in there like by himself. With his handlers.
And I remembered that. That's why I was like, what are the odds lightning can strike twice? Nope.
And we didn't get anything from him that time.
That's, exactly.
But, well.
Something else I was going to tell you that was kind of funny. So after I got Steve and Tash to sign on that poster, I walked kind of to the side, and because I had like all my posters and stuff, and I was trying to organize my poster tubes. So I'm like rolling everything up. And that took me probably 5 or 10 minutes. And then I was like, oh shit, I never gave Malcolm Denaire his marker back. It's still sitting at the other guy's table. So like I ran up there, and Stephen Tash was talking to somebody else. I was like, I'm not going to interrupt. So I went over to the other guy's table, Malcolm Denaire, and I was like, hey man, did you get your marker back? He's like, yeah, I got my marker back. I had to go over there and get it though. He's like, you said you'd bring it back. You didn't. I was like, I'm sorry, I forgot. And then after that, I just walked around a little bit and called it a night and flew out the next morning.
Awesome. And then as we're recording this, tomorrow morning, you're going to be driving out to California.
Yes.
To Pasadena for Monsterpalooza.
That should be a good show. I'm going to be there all day. For the whole show Friday night, I'll probably be there all day Saturday, and then I'm going to drive back on Sunday.
And you're going to be meeting some people that, well, one person in particular that we've never met, and I'm quite jealous, is Miguel Nunez.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Who's very famous for Friday the 13th Part 5, the Ooh Baby, Yeah Baby.
It's those damn enchiladas.
And then also he is in Return of the Living Dead. He's like the survivor guy. Like, well, nobody survives. I think they all die at the end. But he's in the whole movie. Like, he doesn't die early on. So, and he's also in Joanna Man.
Fun fact.
We have a Joanna Man one sheet. But you're going to get him on our Part 5 posters.
Yep.
And you got my Nightmare on Elm Street 4 poster. You're going to meet a bunch of people from that you've already met. But you got to meet them on my behalf. But you got to quickly send those Part 5 posters back to me, because in August, I'm going to New Jersey for New Jersey Horror Convention. And they are going to have Tiffany Helm and Shavar Ross, Reggie the Reckless himself. So we can get those two. And then, David, I got sucked into going back to Monster Mania.
Going back to Maryland.
Bitch about Monster Mania and its organization.
Got you for another one.
Well, they sent out something saying that their show in Maryland in October is going to have Corey Feldman. The Feld Dog is going to be there.
To get him on our part 4 and 5 posters.
Part 4 and 5. So my wife is going with me. I bought VIP tickets so we can cut to the front of the fucking line on that one. And she's going to have your posters. I'm going to have my posters.
Yay.
We're gonna tag team that up. She's gonna be your proxy, but
oh, dude, that's funny because the guy I'm going with tomorrow, our friend Mike, is coming with me to Monsterpalooza. He's gonna be you, so I'm giving him your posters. You're Brett today.
A lot of conventions. A lot of fucking conventions. I hope Monster Mania actually announced some more people. And I hope New Jersey gets some more Part 5 people, because they got people under the stairs people. Mm-hmm. And I don't have that one sheet, nor do I really care about getting it. It's actually really kind of expensive.
I almost bought one the other day because I found one that was reasonably priced, but I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that.
No, I don't care that much about it.
Exactly.
Besides that, Ving Rhames is in that movie, and there's no way I'm going to get him.
You're not going to get him.
Anyhow, who directed People Under the Stairs?
Wes Craven.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Wes Craven then.
Nice transition.
Thank you. Thank you. It's actually not that nice, because I wanted to say, and then David is going to Europe, and you'll be there for a couple of weeks. So have fun on your trip to over the pond.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Chip, chip, cheerio.
Oh, real quick, before we do Wes Craven, one more thing on the subject of John Carpenter. I did find that he's doing a private signing, so I'm going to send my poster off to get signed. So,
oh, you are?
No line.
You are going to do that?
Yeah.
Are you going to do that and send your Memoirs of an Invisible Man one off?
I don't think I'm going to send that one.
David has a Memoirs of an Invisible Man one sheet, and he's like, someday maybe I'll have. He just bought it. You bought it for like pretty cheap.
It was like $10.
And you were like, someday maybe I'll have enough balls and to have John Carpenter sign it. You have a pretty good idea. You have like an invisible, like black. I have a paint. Black light.
Yeah, it's
pen.
like a paint pen, but yeah, it writes in glow in the dark, like paint. But you can't see it. Like it's basically clear until you put it either under a black light or, turn off the lights.
Yeah, but I thought that would be kind of cool if you did do that.
Yeah.
Whatever. And Chevy Chase does conventions too.
That's true. I could get him.
Is Daryl Hannah the woman in that movie? Who's in that?
It's Daryl Hannah.
Yeah, Daryl Hannah. Yeah, I don't know if you could get her, but
yeah.
Anyway, yes, Wes Craven. Wes Craven directed People Under the Stairs, and he took a hiatus from horror movies for a while. Yeah. Until 1994 came around, and then he directed Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Ooh, bringing Freddy back.
Bringing Freddy back. So that's the movie we're going to talk about. This is the second to last, but last Freddy-only movie.
Yep.
That we have to review. Wes Craven's New Nightmare came out October 14th, 1994. I remember it like it was yesterday, David.
Yeah.
Because I went to the movie theater.
I'll bet you did.
On October 14th, 1994. Yeah. And I saw a movie. Mm-hmm. But I did not see Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I saw the #1 movie in the country.
I'm sure you did see Pulp Fiction that particular day.
That was the #1 movie. I did see Pulp Fiction on that day, and I had to convince my friends to go see it, actually. Huh. Because they were like, oh, what is it, John Travolta? And I was like, yeah, I like John Travolta.
He's
Fuck you guys. Yeah, Vinnie Barbarino and Grease and Look Who's Talking. You ever see Look Who's Talking 2? It's great in that movie. And so they were like, fuck you, but we'll go see the movie. And as we were going in, one of our classmates was coming out, and he came out and he said, you guys, that's the best fucking movie I've ever seen. I'm going to go buy a ticket for the next showing right now. And we walked in. That's cool. And he was not wrong. And I proceeded to see that movie probably 5 times in the theater over the course of the next few months.
It is very good.
That was an awesome movie. It was the #1 movie in the country. What was the #1 song?
I'm going with a little slow jam. Little Boys to Men. I'm going, I'll Make Love to You.
David, you are 2 for 2. Look at you coming in strong at the end here. It's a rare feat. You've done it once before, I think. You've come close a couple of times, but yes, I'll make love to you like you want me to, David, and I'll hold you tight.
Baby, all through the night. Dude, I think the first song I ever slow danced to at like a school dance, it wasn't I'll Make Love to You. They probably couldn't play that. Yeah. But End of the Road by Boys to Men.
Were you dancing with somebody?
Yeah.
Did you get a boner?
No, I think I was terrified and probably dripping with sweat.
That's not really like a song that you want to dance to. Although we've come to the end. I wouldn't slow dance to that. Who would play that song? It's like coming to an end of a road.
I don't know. It was the end of the dance. It was like the last song of the night. I was like, all right, I gotta dance with somebody.
Boys to Men. I bought that CD, not that one that I'll Make Love to You is on, but the like Cooley High Harmony CD.
Cooley High Harmony? Yeah. With Motown Philly?
Oh, I used to play that all the time. It was like one of the first CDs I bought.
That song was good.
The first 10. Yeah, it got heavy rotation. Written by Wes Craven's New Nightmare was, of course, written and directed by Wes Craven, with music by J. Peter Robinson and produced by Marianne Maddalena. This movie stars a bunch of people as themselves. Heather Langenkamp plays herself and also Nancy Thompson. Robert Englund plays himself, also is credited as the Entity. And Freddy, he plays Freddy Krueger. Miko Hughes doesn't play himself. He plays Dylan Porter, which is Heather Langenkamp's son in the movie. John Saxon plays himself, and Donald Thompson, Nancy's dad. Wes Craven as himself, Robert Shea as himself, Marianne Maddalena as herself, W. Earl Brown, the camera guy from Scream.
I saw that. Kenny the cameraman.
Kenny the cameraman. He plays the morgue attendant. Lynn Shay, she's back.
I thought this was a weird choice. Like, they brought her back as a nurse, but like everyone else that was in the previous movies is playing themselves. Like, that was weird.
I think it's because she had such a small part in the first movie. She was like a teacher, right? And she wanted, from what I read, she was happy to come back in a small role.
Oh, I'm sure.
Kind of like
just to be in it.
Nurse.
It's cool.
Just kind of like in the background. A couple other people in the background. Nick Corey, who played, what's his fucking name?
Oh, yeah, Rod from the first one.
Rod.
Yeah, he's in the funeral scene. Tuesday Night, I think, same thing.
Tuesday Night, she plays herself. They're in the funeral scene. Nick Corey, Rod from the first movie. He's the guy he's like the rebel.
Yeah. Up yours with a twirling lawnmower. That guy.
And then Tuesday Night she played Kristen in part 4. She took over the role from Patricia Arquette, but she plays herself at the funeral as well. Spoiler alert, there's a funeral. Runtime of this movie, 112 minutes with a budget of $8 million. David, what is the box office?
8 million. I'll go like 15.
19.8 million.
Okay.
Facts, just facts. Just facts. Just facts, man.
All right, got a couple of facts about this movie. This movie actually was written under a working title. This is strictly from Wikipedia, so blame Wikipedia if all of this is wrong. It was under a working title of Nightmare on Elm Street 7, The Ascension. And Wes Craven originally wanted to write this as like part 3. Like, I think they approached him for part 3, and he had this whole idea to do a cerebral kind of Freddy movie, and they went a different direction. Part 3 is my favorite.
Yeah, mine too.
I think it's the best. I thought 4 was your favorite.
No, I like 4. I've got a soft spot for that one. I think it's a lot of fun, but I think 3 is the better movie.
The better film. Yeah, I think part 3 is actually the best Nightmare on Elm Street movie. I'm okay with that being made instead of this, but I understand what he was trying to do. And it was kind of enhanced even more because after part 3, part 4 a little bit, but definitely into part 5 and part 6, it starts going batshit crazy.
It gets goofy.
Freddy becomes funny. They start making talking Freddy dolls for people. Freddy becomes like this pop culture icon after part 3, and everybody likes him. He's supposed to be a scary character, and now everybody's got like squirt guns with Freddy's face on it and fucking dolls and shit like that. It's just he's a child killer,
right?
Like,
yeah,
we need to remember that. And in the original Inception, he was a child molester. So anyway, so that's what Craven kind of wanted to do. Is he wanted to go back and do something that he had more imagined what Freddy Krueger was.
Yeah, and a more serious Freddy.
And they actually changed his makeup and outfit and glove in this movie because of that, because he wanted to differentiate him from the comical Freddy that he'd become. Now, if you remember in Nightmare on Elm Street 1, Freddy is fucked up looking. Like, that's probably my favorite look of Freddy,
as the makeup,
the first one.
Yeah,
because he looks burnt. He looks like a burnt guy. They kind of clean him up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The glove is really raw and like it's busted because it broke on set and they just welded it back together and all that kind of shit, right? But this, makeup wise, I think the makeup for this Freddy version and the glove, I think, is fucking phenomenal.
It's pretty cool.
They got him in a trench coat.
Yeah, his fedora's a little different. He's just he's darker looking.
Yeah, he's very dark looking. Yep, exactly. And Freddy Krueger is actually credited as being played by himself in this movie. So there's earthquake scenes in this movie. They were already written into the script, and it just so happens that in 1994, when they were filming this, the Northridge earthquake actually hit Los Angeles.
I heard about that. So they were able to use some actual shots
Footage.
of things that had been destroyed.
People's damage becomes their money-saving endeavor. They didn't have to build sets. Wes Craven did want to ask Johnny Depp to be in the film, but got too shy.
Which is dumb because he was in part 6.
That's true, but Wes Craven had nothing to do with that.
Still, though, it's like, dude, he did Freddy's Dead. Although, in the time between, though, Johnny Depp's stardom had also changed.
Yeah. But they ran into each other, and Johnny Depp was like, yeah, I totally would have done it.
Dope.
You should ask me. So in the film's opening weekend, they got $6.6 million, ranking third in the box office. It did open against Pulp Fiction, as we stated, which probably fucking hurt them.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Not that Pulp Fiction is a horror movie, but I would imagine, well, it's one of the greatest movies of all time, in my opinion. So a lot of fandom is going to cross over. Like, people are going to go see that movie.
Yeah, and I'm sure also it couldn't have been helped by the fact that part 6 was fucking dog shit.
Yeah, and this movie made $19.8 million worldwide, making it the poorest performing
That's sad.
Nightmare on Elm Street movie ever. That's it for the facts. Let's talk about the plot. We already talked about a little bit of it, that everybody kind of plays themselves, and this is a more cerebral and dark vision. And honestly, David, there's not a lot to... I mean, there's a lot to this movie. It's 112 minutes long of a lot of stuff. But the basic story is that Heather Langenkamp is the star.
Yeah, she was in A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, everything is pretty much like it is in real life. And she is getting harassed by an unknown person that keeps calling her.
Like a stalker type.
Also having dreams, nightmares, if you will, about Freddy. And that kind of mixed together makes her a little bit paranoid, a little bit whatever. And Wes Craven is writing a new movie because his nightmares are back.
Yeah, he feels quote-unquote inspired.
Yep. And so Bob Shea, playing himself, asks Heather if she'll come back and reprise her role of Nancy, to which she says, well, I thought they killed Freddy off. No, Wes...
He's like, oh, well, you know how movies work, Nancy. I mean, Heather.
Wes has a new vision. And he's writing the script, and he's writing the script as the movie's going on. And when we see the pages, it's like the pages that just happened in the movie, and it's the exact lines of the movie. It's very like meta.
Yeah, like there's a scene where Wes Craven and Heather Langenkamp have a conversation, and then the camera kind of lingers on Wes's computer, and it has the exact words that they just said.
Yep. And so he writes this whole movie, and basically what we find out, and I'm gonna skip around here, and we can go back and talk about some high points here, David, but basically what we find out is that Wes Craven, the character of Freddy, actually came to Wes Craven back 10 years prior, and he wrote about it, and it's an evil spirit, an ancient evil spirit.
Yeah, almost like a demon.
Yeah, and it's manifested itself now as this Freddy character, and because they were making movies, it kind of subsided, but... it's back now, and it's haunting Wes Craven again, and so he's writing about it, and he's writing its ultimate demise. And Heather Langenkamp has to reprise her role as Nancy, like she killed Freddy in the original movie. She's killing this entity.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, hey, we got to work together to get through this. Like, I got to keep writing, but you basically got to play Nancy one more time.
Yep. And she does.
But it's for real.
She does. And this entity is actually haunting her kid, which is Miko Hughes, and causing him all sorts of fucking fucked up problems. And she goes into the quote unquote dream world once again and vanquishes the entity once and for all. That's the story of the movie in a nutshell.
Yeah.
There's a couple of good scenes in this movie. I love the opening scene.
The opening scene is awesome. Like, it's very much like the original film. Like, we see, the glove and like hammer and all this stuff. Like, a glove is being made, which is kind of a cool little homage.
And it ends up all being her dream. but the glove like comes to life.
But I like how even before it's set up as a dream, like at first we're like, oh, this is like the opening Freddy scene, and then we see like Freddy, we don't see his whole body, we see him like chop off his own hand. It's like, oh Jesus, and then all of a sudden the glove just goes ape shit, and then we kind of zoom out and we're on a movie set. They're making like a Freddy, a Nightmare on Elm Street type movie, and the glove is just flying around killing people.
Yeah, and Heather Langenkamp, in real life too, her and her husband own a special effects company, or they used to. I don't know if they still do, but her movie husband is the guy who created the glove and whatnot. So she wakes up from this nightmare, and her husband, Chase, in the movie, he's like, they get woken up by this earthquake, right? There's a theme of these earthquakes that are happening, and it's basically the entity that's causing these earthquakes, right? Like fucking, he's gonna suck everybody into hell or some shit. But they get woken up by this earthquake, not uncommon in California. And her husband actually has an injured hand, which she saw in her dream. So she's like, how did you get that? And he's like, I don't know.
Yeah, he's like, I must have cut it on some glass. We just had a fucking earthquake.
Yeah. But he goes off, like I said, he's got special effects company. He goes off to do a job in Palm Springs. And that's when Dylan, their kid, starts fucking convulsing, having some problems and stuff. And so she calls Chase and she's like, hey, you got to come home. And he's like, all right, I'll be home. And as he's driving home, he falls asleep, and Freddy fucking attacks him in his dreams. Or I don't know if he's dreaming, if it's real life. It's kind of like ambiguous, because yes, he does fall asleep, like, but I didn't know if it was like a dream or not. I'm assuming it was, right?
And we find out that Heather, like Langenkamp, around this time finds out that this movie is being made and that her husband's been hired to make the glove. And she's like, why didn't he tell me that? But yeah, he's kind of falling asleep at the wheel, and all of a sudden the glove comes alive and kills him.
Yeah, and it like slashes his chest. And this is a fucked up scene that this is where that W. Emmett... or W. Earl Brown, excuse me, has his scene, because she goes and she's like, I want to see the body. And she like just walks into the fucking morgue as they're like slicing bodies apart.
Yeah.
But she looks at her husband.
Yeah, and he just pulls back the face, or the blanket over the face. And he's like, is this him? And she's like, I need to see it again. And he's like, okay. And he shows again. And she's like, show me more. And he's like,
show me his dick. That's how I could tell if it's my husband.
Yeah, go all the way around to that. No. He's got a really funny looking dick. I'll be able to spot him right away if it's him.
And it's really small. Like, really. Like, we don't even have
He's
sex.
like, just trust me. You don't need to see this lady. It hooks very far to the left. And she's like, my left or your left?
Because it might not be my husband.
That's going to make a difference.
No, but she just sees his chest, and he's got like 4 claw marks down his chest.
Yeah, and she's like, what the hell happened? And he's like, well, he was in a car accident. What do you expect?
Yeah, I don't know. Like his face to be bashed in, not claw marks.
That's Freddy Krueger.
So he's dead. So Wes Craven wrote Chase's death. Well, thanks, Wes.
Yeah, thanks a lot, asshole.
They have this funeral. This is the funeral scene where we see like cast members from the past, and this is actually where we first see Wes Craven in the movie, and John Saxon, which I got a little sad. I know Wes Craven's passed away, and it's been a long time, but I got sad about John Saxon only because
that's still fairly recent.
It's fairly recent, and I know that he kind of had dementia towards the end of his life. Not kind of. I believe rough. He had dementia towards the end of his life, and so yes, Wes Craven dying is sad as well. And I know I've talked a lot of shit about Wes Craven, and it's not that I dislike Wes Craven as a person or even as a director. I just don't think he's like the master of horror that everybody says that he is. Right. That's just my personal opinion. Anyhow, she like has a dream while she's at the funeral where she like climbs down into the casket and gets sucked down into hell, and she sees Freddy.
Well, Freddy's got her son like pulling him into the casket.
Yeah, and
she's like, no, yeah, and she gets pulled in.
She gets pulled in, and this is like where she first comes face to face with his face, Freddy's face, because we had seen the glove, we had seen whatever, and he's like, oh, remember me, or some shit like that. Speaking of which, Robert Englund has a little role, not a little role, he's got a pretty prominent role in this as himself, and he comes out, she's at a talk show, like getting interviewed, and he comes out as Freddy, and she kind of gets freaked out by it. But I also like in this movie where like afterwards there's like there's a crowd asking for Robert Englund's autograph, right? And I'm like, that's $100 a pop, Robert. Yeah, I know what you charge. You son of a bitch. Times were different back in '94. You could get Robert Englund's autograph for free. he talks to Nancy. He talks to Heather and is like, hey, let's do this script. Wes is whatever. Let's work together again. Yada, yada, yada. She ends up calling him later on after her husband is dead. And she's like, hey, I need to meet up with you because I need to talk to you. She wants to talk to him about what's going on in her life, And he's like, yeah, I really can't do that right now.
Now's not a good time.
And he hangs up. And Robert Englund is an artist. He's like painting, and we finally see what he's painting, and it's like all these souls, and it's like Freddy, and it's like a
fucked up Freddy painting.
And
you can tell he's concerned.
Yeah.
Like he's having nightmares too.
Yeah, and it's so much so that him and his wife leave town because she calls him again later, and it's like, this is Robert. We've left town. We probably won't be back for a while. Peace.
Which I thought was kind of weird from a plot perspective. Like Robert Englund just disappears. I mean, we still get Freddy, but Robert Englund as himself, like about halfway through the movie, just dips.
Yeah, that's true. Dylan is all fucked up. Like he's having nightmares. He's talking. He's walking in his sleep. He's watching the original Nightmare on Elm Street movie on TV. And Heather's like, you should.
And the TV's not plugged in.
Yeah, the TV's not plugged in. There's something wrong here.
They get somebody to look at that.
He's foaming at the mouth. The phone rings. It's this prank caller again, and there's foam coming out of the phone. I'm like,
the phone.
There's some shit going on here. She ends up taking Dylan to a hospital, and there's this doctor who's like, she's thinking there's child abuse going on because she sees...
something's up.
She sees Heather's got...
And she knows who she is, and she's like, is he allowed to watch your movies? And she kind of ducks the question.
Yeah. And she sees that Heather has like cuts on her arm. Maybe she thinks that Heather is cutting herself and abusing her husband, especially because, or not abusing her husband, abusing her son because her husband just died. So she's the nurse, the doctor is suspecting all this stuff, which a doctor would do and is required by law to call the cops. And
I do like that when she's asking her, like, has your kid seen them, or is he allowed to watch your movie? She's like, every kid in the world knows who Freddy Krueger is.
Yeah.
To your point earlier, like he had become kind of larger than life and more of a pop culture icon.
Well, and David, think back to when you were a kid, because I know your parents were, let you watch some movies, but some they didn't. And I remember
I wasn't allowed to watch the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, but I knew who Freddy Krueger was, and I was Freddy Krueger for Halloween one year. I'd never seen any of his movies, but I was him, and I thought he was awesome.
Yeah. You hadn't seen a single fucking movie, and you were Freddy Krueger?
Nope. Total poser.
When did you first see? Because Nightmare on Elm Street 4 was the first one you saw.
That was the first one I saw, and that probably would have been like early 90s.
Wow.
Yeah, I would say it was after like the first 6 came out, but it would have been before New Nightmare. Yeah.
And you just started with 4 because you were just like, fuck it, 4 looks good.
No, because I was spending the night at a friend's house and he had HBO or something, and that's the one that was on.
Oh, okay.
So we're like, we're going to watch this.
And did you like get a boner right away for it? Were you like, I love this fucking movie. This is the greatest movie ever made.
I did really like it. I was like, all right, I need to see more of these. This movie's fun.
It lived up to your expectations?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's good. God forbid the first one you watched would have been Freddy's Dead. Because then you would have been like, what the fuck is this? Even part 2, because I like part 2. I know you like part 2. But if the first one you would have watched would have been part 2.
Yeah, part 2's, it's okay.
But it's better than, 5. It's better than 6.
2 and 5, to me, are kind of on the same level of shittiness.
You're nuts.
Freddy's barely even in part 2. It's okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you would have seen it as a kid, you wouldn't have liked it. But as an adult now, you can appreciate it.
As an adult, I probably prefer part 2 to part 5, yes.
Yeah. All right, so the doctor, she calls the cops. The cops come. They kind of detain her a little bit, which I'm like, yeah, I guess they would question her, but they really have nothing. Like, they just have, they got to just talk to her a little bit. But the kid, Dylan, he's over in a room, and they're going to give him a sedative.
He's in a room with the babysitter, Julie.
Yeah, Julie's this babysitter, and the nurses are trying to give him a sedative. And Heather had said, don't let them do that, because don't fall asleep, right?
Yeah, and earlier they had even given him pills, which he hid underneath his pillow.
Yeah. So they're going to give him a shot sedative, and they trick the babysitter, because the babysitter's like, no, his mom said no, and they end up doing it anyway. And I'm like, that's fucking illegal.
That's fucked up.
It's highly illegal, by the way. If me as a parent, if I said, no, you're not giving him, plus, what if she's like, no, because he's allergic to that and he could die?
Exactly. But the nurse is like super cocky about it, kind of like, oops. What are you going to do now? Yeah,
and she's like, I'm going to fucking punch you.
What, are you going to die about it?
So she ends up like punching the nurses. The nurses like run away, but Freddy comes. And this is like Rod's death in part 1 because...
Or
Tina's death, excuse me. Tina's death in part 1 because she's like getting dragged across the ceiling and
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Only Dylan can see Freddy until all of a sudden Julie, the babysitter, is about ready to die, and then she sees Freddy and she's like, run. So Dylan runs, and earlier on, Heather had said, our house is right across that freeway there. You'll be home in no time. Well, he, in his little kid mind, he's like, oh, I just got to go cross the freeway.
Uh-oh.
So he starts walking across the freeway. Heather calls, she gets away, and she realizes Freddy. And then the doctor and all the nurses are like, what the fuck happened? Oh, I didn't realize. And she's like, I tried to tell you fuckers that there's
why is there blood all over the ceiling?
And the nurses even saw Julie's body getting dragged across the ceiling.
Yeah, like, that ain't normal. We're gonna have to have her checked out.
So Heather's like, he's running across the freeway. I know, my son. And so she goes chasing after him and calls up John Saxon in the process. And she's like, you got to help me get my son, da-da-da-da-da. And so she hangs up with him, and she goes to the freeway. And this little fucker is crossing the freeway. It's LA traffic, right?
It's like a game of Frogger.
Yeah. It's like this Seinfeld episode.
Yeah, with the arcade game.
But anyway, a giant claw comes out of nowhere and like picks him up and like carries him across. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on in this world? This movie
That was nice of you, Freddy.
This movie just took a fucking left turn when it should have taken a right. But he gets him across the street. Heather gets across the street. John Saxon shows up at the house. And all of a sudden, John Saxon's like, Heather, everything's fine.
And the house is different. Did you notice that too? Like, the house is now the house from part 1.
Yeah, and then he starts calling her Nancy.
Yeah, she's like, why are you calling me Nancy, John? And he's like, why are you calling me John?
Yeah.
And sure enough, she looks, and she's even wearing her clothes from the first movie.
And she ends up finally calling him Dad. She's like, I got what I have to do. I have to become Nancy. So she calls him Dad. He ends up leaving. And she goes and searches for Fred Krueger. And there's this ongoing theme throughout the movie of Hansel and Gretel.
Yes, with the breadcrumbs.
Yeah, and so she sees the pills that Dylan had left for her that he had not
the sleeping
taken.
pills.
And she starts overdosing on fucking
I was going to say, like, I was wondering if she's like, what's the recommended dosage on these? She's popping them like Tic Tacs.
Heather Langenkamp's character dies of a
drug overdose.
The whole world blows
end.
up. The end. No, but she goes into the dream world like you would if you fucking take that many fucking or not the opposite of no-dos, right? So she takes all that and she goes into the dream world, and she finds Dylan, and then Freddy comes out.
Fight!
Yeah, they fight, and then they're in like this hell like boiler room.
It's
area.
like a furnace or something.
Yeah.
And Freddy's like gonna eat Dylan.
Yeah, and he chases him into a furnace. Like, okay, again, the Hansel and Gretel type thing, right? Mm-hmm. He chases him into a furnace, and Dylan double backs to get to Heather, and they push Freddy in and light the furnace. And it's really kind of an anticlimactic death.
It really is. Like when they kill him, I was like, that's it?
Yep. They kill him and his face turns into like a demon for like a quick millisecond.
Yeah. But it's a weird showdown because he's got like a tongue made of taffy that like wraps around her neck and stuff.
Yeah, and then Dylan like stabs it.
And and they stab him and then push him into the furnace.
He's all, what are you doing? And then they come out.
They wake up and they're home.
Yep. And he's like, and then she finds the script. And in the script inside, it's a note from Wes. He says, thanks for, dear Nancy, thanks for playing, or dear Heather, thanks for playing Nancy one last time. Yada, yada, yada.
Regards, Wes.
Best regards, Wes. And then Dylan's like, what's that, Mommy? Will you read it to me? And she starts reading the script from page 1, which is the same scene that David described earlier with the guy hammering. It's the same. It's the beginning of the movie.
Right. What if it all just happened again?
Oh, I would probably pull my fucking eyeballs out of there.
It's like, I got to stop reading this.
That's the movie.
Yeah.
Now, I had seen this movie before, But I waited a while to see it. Like, I didn't see it until just a few years ago. We had been doing the podcast the first time I actually saw it. And I didn't like it. And I remember you had told me, like, oh, no, I really like it. It's like the precursor to Scream, you know, like Wes Craven did this whole meta thing and is kind of self-referential, kind of like Scream is. And so I watched it and I was like, well, this isn't really that good. But I watched it again.
Yeah.
Obviously, for the podcast. And it was better this time.
Good.
Here's where the movie suffers from, though. It's too fucking long.
It's almost 2 hours long. It's long.
Yeah. It's about 25 minutes too long.
And we don't even get, I actually wrote down the timestamp, we don't get our first full-blown Freddy Krueger scene. Like, we get little glimpses of him, and, like, we see his face, and we see different parts of him. But, like, our first scene with Freddy happens about an hour and 8 minutes into the movie.
Yeah. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Although it's not a quote-unquote Freddy movie. It's a movie about this demon who just takes the... whatever. But people don't want to see that shit, Wes. That's why this movie didn't make money. It wasn't because part 6 sucked.
Yeah, well, they even say, like, in this movie, like, they're like, are they going to do another one? And I think it's Bob Shea or maybe the woman that worked, I can't remember her name. She's like, you know, the kids love Freddy. We got to bring him back. And I was like, yes, then we need more Freddy in this movie.
Exactly. And maybe that was what Wes was kind of saying in this movie. Is like, oh, the kids love Freddy, but I'm not going to give you him. Like, he probably didn't do that on purpose.
Yeah.
Which I understand. I understand the concept behind it. It's very meta. It's very self-referential, like I just said. But I wanted more Freddy. I wanted more kills. I wanted better kills.
Yeah, and that's my biggest concern, but like one of my biggest gripes is that the kills aren't particularly interesting. Like the best scene is kill-wise is the very first, like the opening scene. Like all the other movies, we get like very creative things. Like you get the cockroach thing and the needle glove and all that shit. Like there's nothing like that. It's not as imaginative with the kills as the other ones are.
No, and I could see that being justified in the sense that he wanted to bring some realism to it instead of that. But at the same time, we get an ending that's fucking cheesy as shit.
Yeah.
It's this whole Hansel and Gretel, like, fucking kicked into the furnace type stuff.
Well, and I think, too, because he wanted to get away from the jokey Freddy Krueger, which I actually appreciate. I thought towards the end it got a bit ridiculous with all the one-liners. Like, I liked the approach of having a serious Freddy, but that, I think, could have given license to very serious, brutal, nasty kills.
Yeah, I agree. And if you go back to the first movie, you know, you just quickly go back to what you just said about not being a lot of Freddy, and me saying that as well. If you go back to the first movie, there's not a lot of Freddy either.
Yeah, he's got very little screen time.
It's like 13 minutes, I think, in total. If that, it might be 8. But regardless, this is 10 years removed from that first movie. I think we know what the audience wants to see. They want to see Freddy. They want to see good kills. Not necessarily funny, like punny joke kills, but like good creative kills.
Right.
Which, again, we got in Scream that Wes Craven directed. Now, Wes Craven didn't write that shit, though. Wes Craven wrote Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Kevin Williamson wrote Scream, so Kevin Williamson deserves the credit for that one. I enjoyed it for what it was, but I didn't enjoy it enough to be like, oh, this is such a great fucking Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And I also enjoyed the actors playing themselves. Like, I thought that was...
Yeah, me too.
That was pretty fun. But I'm going to give this movie 2 Pamela Voorhees Heads.
2?
It's the same I gave part 2.
Oh, wow. So you put this on the same level as part 2. Interesting. I like this one a lot more than part 2.
I rather enjoy part 2. I can watch part 2 and like... I like it, and I like this one too, but I also understand that part 2 isn't a great movie, and I understand this isn't a great movie, but I would put them on the same level of movies that I would watch.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I went a little higher. I give this one a 3 because just kind of thinking of my own stack ranking, like to me 3 is the superior, it's the best one, and then part 1. And then I'd probably, to me, part 4 and this one are close. I'd probably give a slight edge to part 4 just because I think it's more fun. And I'd put this one next. And then I think, then 2, 5, and 6. So I had to look and see like what I actually rated those. So I would rate this above 2 and 5. Like I gave 2 1.5. I gave 5 1.5. And I feel like this one is better than both of those. But And I would recommend people see it, especially if you like the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. So it's a 3 for me.
Yeah, I mean 2.5 overall. That's probably about right. And I would think that you are correct. Maybe this gets a little bit of the edge over part 2. I guess it just depends on what I'm feeling
On your mood.
at any particular time. It's definitely different, and part 2 is definitely different. So if you want Freddy, haha Freddy, you need to watch 3, 4, and 5.
Yep.
If you want good
and 6,
like,
but
dark,
with less ha-has because it's just not funny. It's just
6
stupid.
just sucks, so
6
don't
is
watch
awful.
6. 6 is awful. So 3, 4, 5 if you want like the Freddy haha like that we love. But if you want a darker Freddy, 1, 2, and this one.
Agreed.
7, I guess.
Yep.
Would be the way to go. So that's Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Now, this isn't the last time we see Freddy on film. This isn't the last time that Robert Englund will play Freddy, because he will play him again in Freddy versus Jason. That being said, Robert Englund just came out, I think it was yesterday in our timeline, and said, I will not be playing Freddy Krueger any longer.
Yeah, he's like, I'm old. I have arthritis and I don't want to do it.
I'm not doing it. So we will not be seeing Robert Englund. I mean, never say never, right? You know?
Yeah, money talks, but it doesn't sound
Money
like
talks.
he's going to do it.
But I guess if the role was right, here's what I could see happening, David, and you play along with me here real quick. Let's do a little brainstorming session. I could see him coming back just like neck up, Freddy makeup, glove on, as a cameo in a Freddy movie that passes the torch to someone else, possibly.
Yeah, or even like like in the new Halloween movies, like how Nick Castle is in all of them for like a shot.
Yeah, the thing about that, though, is that he wears a mask, so anybody can be under the mask. The thing that people like about Freddy Krueger is Robert Englund.
There's an actor under there.
Yeah, and it's his comic timing, and it's also his... I remember, it must have been in one of these documentaries, but where he was almost like got the
like the body language and
yeah, and how he like took it seriously, and he was like, I almost patterned him after like a gunslinger, you know?
because the glove is a little heavy, so his one shoulder droops a little bit. Yeah.
So I don't know, like I could see him doing something, but again, like passing the torch to another person, becoming like a Indiana Jones kind of passing the torch to this new Indiana Jones lady. But I heard that movie sucks.
I've also heard it's not good, which is a bummer.
The Dial of Destiny. Yeah. They really have fucked up the legacy of Indiana.
I'm still going to see it
Jones. Though. Well, of course I'm going to see it. I'm not opposed to watching it, but anyhow, back to this. Something will happen with Freddy Krueger in the future. You can almost guarantee that the character Freddy Krueger will be back.
Oh yeah.
There's
too much money on the table.
Yeah. Yeah. Because again, it goes back to the whole Jason Voorhees. It's like, you want to make money? It's like printing money.
Well, I know Robert Englund actually has suggested on more than one occasion that he wants Kevin Bacon. He thinks he'd make a good Freddy, which I don't disagree. But Kevin Bacon's no spring chicken either.
No, he's like 65 years old at this point.
Yeah, it's like you got to get... If you want to have like a lasting franchise thing, you probably need to get somebody a little younger.
Although, if you're Kevin Bacon, you're like, yeah, let's do this. Let's fucking film me in some makeup right now, because I was in a Friday the 13th movie. Now I can be in a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. I've done a bunch of other horror movies. Like, Kevin Bacon is low-key like one of the horror icon men, if you look at all the movies that he's done.
Yeah, he's done a lot.
He's done a lot. So that's our ranking for Wes Craven's New Nightmare 2.5. Stay tuned next week, because next week's our last episode.
I know,
David,
it's crazy.
For the time being, we'll see where things go. But it's what we're qualifying as our last episode of this run. It's episode 250. We will be reviewing Freddy versus Jason. That'll be the last Freddy movie we need to do, and the last Jason movie that we need to do.
Dude, I'm looking forward to that. I haven't watched Freddy vs. Jason in a long time.
It's been a couple years for me.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it as well. And I would request this, if you are listening to us right now, and I know there's people out there who listen to us because I see that happen.
We have access to statistics.
You can call us, and David will give you the number here in just a sec. Well, David, why don't you just give him the number right now?
Sure, it's 623-282-1851.
So you can call us and leave a voicemail message. Any of your thoughts. If you want to say, you guys are assholes, I only listen to you so I fucking hate listen to you. If you want to say how much you love us, if you want to say anything, no one's going to answer that phone. It'll just go to a voicemail. You'll hear David's lovely voice probably say, hey, you've reached the Swearwolves. Leave us a message. But we'd love to hear from you. Or you can email us. David, what's our email address?
It is contact@theswearwolves.com.
And anything you write us, we'll be more than happy. We want to read. So for our last episode, when this comes out, we won't have recorded it yet because we're going to do that one quick turnaround time because Mr. fucking Worldwide over here has to come back from his trip before we can record this. So
yeah, we're going to record that one just a couple of days before it comes out. So that'll actually be kind of cool.
Yeah.
It would be kind of anticlimactic for us. Like, oh, here's something we recorded 3 weeks ago. Enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, leave us a message, whether it's vocally through our answering machine or answering machine. Where's a fucking we're like, I'm glad you called, but I'm not home. I'll be home before too long. You gotta wait for the beep. We don't have an answering machine. It's a voicemail. There, that's what the word is, Brett. Or through our email. Just contact us some way. Tell us what you think of us, and we'll love to read that and talk about that during the last episode. But that puts a cap on this episode 249.
Oh, the end is so close. It is nigh.
It is nigh, my friend. So for the Swearwolves this week, I'm Brett.
I'm David.
And we'll see you in your dreams. Your wet dreams.
Recording now.
I'm recording as well. All right. Let's just do this. Let's get this going.
Jump right in. Oh man, that smells.
Fuck it. We'll do it live, David. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Dude, it's a good thing we don't have the cameras on, so I'm not making a face that you can tell I'm smelling a rancid fart. That's pungent.